everyone, it's Julian. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make classic hard groove techno, sort of like Dave the Drummer, Ben Sims, that style. As usual, you can get the full project files, samples, the MIDI, the presets, everything from this video that you just heard in the intro is available right at the top of the description on my website. This is an amazing template to build off of. I really recommend grabbing it. I haven't heard another one this solid on the market. This really helps support me. I don't make a whole lot off of YouTube alone with these videos. I really don't pay that much at all, so it helps support me. But really the goal here is this is a very accessible template. Pretty much anybody can afford this, that you can download right now, that will take your tracks to the next level today. It's got super high quality sounds that you can bring into any track, and I promise you, you will hear a difference in your production today if you grab this. So, link is at the top of the description. Thank you so much for the support, guys. Enjoy, and let's dive in. So we're at 139 BPM here, a little bit faster, especially for this kind of groove, right? Because usually this kind of groove is maybe like 10 BPM slower, so a little bit more like, but the interesting thing here is it doesn't feel like super fast. Like when you hear like maybe more of that like hard rave type of stuff I've been doing on here, it really feels like 140 BPM. This, if you listen to it, like, it's fast, but it's not, for some reason, like, it doesn't have that same kind of thing to it, to where it feels so fast. So, that's kind of the thing. When you hear these tracks, you might think they're slower. Like, you might want to do, like, 132 BPM or something like that. But if you actually try to do that, all of a sudden your track isn't going to match up. So, yeah, the first thing we got up here is going to be the clap. Now you can hear this one doesn't have any processing, we can see that, but it sounds just very full and punchy already. And that's going to be a big theme here, because with a lot of these classic tracks, you got to keep in mind, like, making these tracks in the 90s and the 2000s, and maybe even the modern day, like, they weren't using so much processing. Like, back then, you couldn't just put, like, 5 or 10 different plugins on one sound, especially not on, like, a drum sound, where you would probably need to save CPU space because the computers or the hardware they were using at the time just couldn't handle it. So what they had to do instead was just start with great samples. So that's why, you want to aim for something like this. Like, this clap, like, when you hear it, you might go, oh, it's like a 909 clap or an 808 clap, and they probably put a bunch of saturation and EQ and stuff on it, but it's like, if you actually tried to do that with a really dry clap sample, you wouldn't really get this, compared to just finding something really hard like this and bringing it into the track. So then we have the hi-hats. Well, the main hi-hat. And same deal, so no processing here, but it's really just a process of putting together multiple samples that will create that one really full sound. Like, we got our really nice, but then also this very bright, punchy hi-hat on top. Then we have some other hi-hats. So you see we got a shaker. And then you can see on top of that, kind of adding some movement, we have the synth hi-hat. And what this is it's playing every other 16th note, and it's just a bit of white noise inside of operator going into a bandpass filter. And then what makes this move is we have an LFO on the filter cutoff. So you get this hi-hat that's constantly changing. And that's really the idea with this. It's also got some drum bus, which helps to make it sound a bit more like percussion and less like a synth. But yeah, like, the idea with this is that you can create, like, evolving percussion. Because if you just use samples, it's important to use samples. But if you only use samples, they're very static, right? There's not really much you can do besides adding, like, a filter, kind of like what we did here, honestly, with some movement. There's not really much that you can do on samples. But if you're making the sound from scratch with a synth, you can just automate any parameter in there and create this very detailed, evolving sound. So that's what we're doing here. And then the last layer in here is this little reverb swell. So this is actually, I put some reverb on one of these hi-hats, and I recorded the tail, and then I just reversed it. And then you just kind of put that, you can hear like how that fits into the beat. It's really about just creating this little like, that little that's going to hit there just to kind of, right, because that's a big part of this groove, right? You have a few things that are constantly going, like this stuff, You know, that's just like the same every time, right? Just. Then you have some stuff which is kind of coming in and out. But then you gotta have on top of that the contrast of like this reverb swell, for example, which is a very simple and small element. But just having that one thing that's only once every 2 bars, while some stuff is constant and some stuff is pretty constant but not as constant, and then you also have this one thing that's just completely out there just every now and then. That's really what's keeping these tracks going, because when you hear this stuff you might go, wow, it's so simple, like why is this working? Well, this is it. It's the contrast inside of the groove where some things are constant, some things you only hear once every like 2 bars or so, and then some things you hear every bar but it's kind of more tucked away. And even though this might seem like a simple background layer, that's why it's so important. And then on the hi-hat group you can see there's no processing, so just keeping everything really clean. That's the best with this style. Like again, like I was saying before, and it's not just for like finding fat sounds, but it's also because like if you start saturating and compressing these, it's gonna get really messy when you have all this stuff. Like with this type of a track, you want to have all of this stuff hitting really hard, but just very clean. And then when you're just gonna master it and just turn that up, and it'll be really full. Versus if you do a bunch of saturation and stuff and try to go, oh well, it's hard groove techno, so we're gonna make the hi-hats crunchy. Pretty soon it's going to fall apart, because then you're not really going to have like this clean thing to just boost up at the end. And that's really the goal here, is to create this super clean, simple groove that then when you go and master that and like really hit it with the mastering, it'll just get like huge. So the next thing we got here is going to be the kick. Now this is a rumble kick. We got our nice punchy main kick right up front, right? And this one also, it's not just like, you see there's no processing on this, but what is really important is the actual sample selection. Right? It's this very, almost like a soft kick, but it has a really good click to it. And it has like that bass as well. And then the rumble, it's actually made with a different kick. And this is a very steady, fat rumble. What we're doing is there's no reverb. So it's actually this kick, which is going through some effects. So you can see it's this kick. We got the 16th note arpeggiator, so you're just getting a du-du-du-du. Then it's going into this amp, which you can see really brings out the bass. And then on low pass, so we really just get the bass. And you'll notice this low pass is super low too, like it's not actually that much that's coming through, but these little tiny movements on the fills here make a huge difference. Like, if I just open that a little bit, you know, all of a sudden the groove is completely different. So, this is like a very fine little detail, but actually where you set that will make a big difference. And then it's just being side chin to the kick, and that's it for the rumble. Again, you don't want too much extra processing, it's just getting a nice steady do-do-do-do-do-do underneath the kick. So then we have these rolls. So what it is it's a bunch of percussion inside of this drum rack, creating like this kind of steady groove. And what's happening is we're putting that through an echo, so it kind of fills in some extra hits there, and then we're distorting it, and that brings out the sound a lot. And then the last secret to this is we have a low pass filter before the echo and the distortion. And now you hear how it's going, like it's kind of getting louder. So that's what this filter is doing. You can see we have the saw wave going up, so it's like this is opening upwards on quarter notes. And then what happens is when you distort that, and then you put it through echo and then distort, you get this very nice kind of moving texture with the percussion. You can even do more of this if you wanted. But this is a really good way that you can take samples and almost like kind of turn it into something else, you know? Then we have this rim shot. And I'll also show you this live percussion, because these two kind of go together. So these are just meant to be some more percussions. Again, like we have the stuff that's constant, the dooch, dooch, and the shakers and stuff like that. Then we have the rolls and like this groove down here that are a little bit less frequent. And then these are going to be more of those elements that just come in once These are once every 4 bars. So again, it's that contrast. Some things are once every 4 bars. Some things are once every 2 bars. Some things are once every bar. Some things are just constant. And it's all that little like degrees of contrast that are going to make this groove come together. And when you hear these tracks and you go, how is this all working? That's what it is. And it's not that complicated either, right? Because it's like, that's an easy thing to do. Like, go, okay, I'm going to have some percussion that's going to be constant, some percussion that's going to be once every 2 bars, some that's going to be once every 4 bars. But at the same time, I can very much see the perspective where, like, if you're just looking at that or you're just hearing the track, it'd be kind of hard to break that down and really understand what's going on. But when you break it down, you're like, oh, yeah, that's not that hard. So here, this is just a rim shot. A little bit of echo, and then this is some percussion, and I think kind of a similar chain to what you just saw, where you can see it's the echo with the overdrive afterwards. And the overdrive after the echo is good because it kind of compresses the echo and brings it out a little bit, but it's also adding a certain texture that, like, if you compress that, you wouldn't really get. And then we just have a high pass filter. And then the last thing we have down here is this group. And these are kind of like the last rolls. Now these are really important for the groove. Because what's going to happen is you're going to kind of, so you're usually going to start with something like this, right? Like we have our hi-hats and our clap and our kick. I'm like, okay, this stuff is good. The kick is fat. The rumble's fat. The hi-hat and clap are fat. But we need like this is a little bit too simple, right? It's not really got like that hard groove to it because it's just really like simple, right? So that's where something like this comes in. And also the rolls too. See, that's how you get that hard groove kind of thing where basically you have a boom, or even just a boom, constantly going, but then you have this thing kind of dancing over top of it. You want to think of this thing, it's like the kick and the bass and the hi-hats and the percussion, or the clap at least, those are kind of like the floor, and this is like the dancer dancing on the floor. And what this is it's basically taking these 2 different rave loops. I've chopped them up, right? So these are like pretty popular sounds already in this style. You guys have seen me use these before. And then I kind of created one groove out of them. And this is one of those things where if you hear it in the track, you're like, oh my god, how'd they do that? It's like, sounds like it's like being automated and it's got all this different stuff happening. Well, really, it's just 2 different loops that are kind of cut together to create one nice groove. And that'll sound, when you hear it in the track, it sounds like one thing, but it's like putting 2 things together to create one thing. Now, what makes these work also is kind of similar to the rolls I showed you. You can see with both of these, I got some echo and overdrive. And yeah, same thing. So on the second one, so again, it's just kind of taking it, and I like doing the echoes separately because it'll kind of create, I think it creates more background stuff rather than just having it on the whole group. And then so you've got that working together with the rolls. And see how they kind of create one groove? I did that on purpose. When I wrote this, I started with this one. And then I didn't just make these rolls like random notes. It's like notes that fit really well with what this is doing. For example, here, the little groove down here goes, and then there's an 8th note open. So when that 8th note is open, this plays. See how you get like, it's like the 2 different loops coming together. And that's not that hard to do. Just find the spaces where there's openings in one and then fill it with the other one. And then all of a sudden it's going to be like, oh, they're talking to each other. But, you know, it's not that complicated if you break it down on that level. And then on the group with these, it's just a compressor side chaining into the kick, you know. Didn't really need too much over processing. And yeah, so that's gonna be it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed. As always, make sure to like this video and subscribe if you haven't already. Let me know what you think of this video in the comments too. Let me know if you want to see me do some more of this classic Hardgroove stuff. As usual, you can get this full project files, samples, MIDI, presets, literally everything from this video is available at the top of the description. This is a really solid template, one of the best on the market right now for this style. This can instantly elevate your tracks to the next level and just give you something really solid to build on, whether you're looking to make your first track, your second track, your millionth track, whatever it is, wherever you are in the process, this is something that can help you right now. So, link is at the top of the description. Thank you so much for the support, guys, and I'll see you tomorrow with another video.